Welcome to another edition of No Veteran Left Behind USA's Warrior Wisdom and Wellness. Now here's your host, Diane Young.
Hello everyone, I'm Diane Young, a Marine veteran and a Marine wife and a Marine mom, and I am happy to be the host of the Warrior Wisdom and Wellness podcast, and particularly today because I get to introduce you to a good friend of mine, Dr. Rae Anne Ho Fung, and get to hear about this program that she has helped start called Firewatch with Rogers Behavioral Health Center. So welcome, Rae Anne. Please tell us a little bit about yourself and the program, how you got involved with it.
Yeah, thank you. So like Diane said, my name is Rae Anne Ho Fung. I'm a licensed psychologist and I've specialized in trauma. I am an Army veteran. I was in the Army for 9 years. I did a deployment to Iraq in 2009 to 2010. And veteran mental health has always been near and dear to me because of some of the experiences that I saw when I was in the Army. And you really can't live during this era, this time since post 9/11, without knowing that mental health is an important piece of the total health of our veteran brothers and sisters. Mm-hmm. And so when I went back to school to get my PhD, there was always this mission to give back to veterans, which is partly why I specialized in trauma psychology. And I joined Rogers Behavioral Health right after I got my PhD in 2018 and have been working since to build allies within the organization and then partners outside of the organization to figure out what is it? How do we provide more access to veterans, and what can I do within a civilian institution to do that? And so we tried, a lot of different things. We started an ERG, an employee resource group. We brought our friends in from the community to give some education to staff members. And then finally we saw this grant, WDVA grant. They were for suicide prevention, and we applied and we were granted a grant, and that's how we were able to finally start building this program. As Diane said, it's called Firewatch, and it's a virtual intensive outpatient program for veterans and military service members.
Very nice. Having heard your story, I'm really intrigued at how you were that go-to person for a lot of the people that you served with. Sure. And so you carried that passion for being able to help into a new program and really specializing in moral injury. And people might not really understand what that's all about. So would you like to share about what moral injury is and the services that y'all provide for that?
Sure. Yeah, I'd like to credit people who've been working to understand moral injury for several decades. It's becoming more understood in the last maybe 10 years, maybe 5. But really, this idea of moral injury came from the post-war experience of our Vietnam-era veterans. They came home to an environment that wasn't necessarily supportive of the things that they were doing, and yet they were doing what they thought was the right thing, right? And so moral injury really it starts in childhood with a healthy set of morals, values that we all develop. There are cultural norms that we are raised into. We're raised, our kindergartners holding the signs like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And it's usually something altruistic. People are raised to want to help other people. And then when they get into situations, maybe a combat situation, for example, where they have to make a choice, and no matter what the choice is, they will violate one of their values. Mm-hmm. So the easiest example is in a combat situation where you have to choose between violating your value of not wanting to kill, like thou shalt not kill is something that a lot of us are raised with, right? Mm-hmm. Or risking your brothers and sisters being injured or killed in a combat situation. And so people make a choice, and oftentimes, because of the way that we're trained, it's to protect the people to your left and right, which are your brothers and sisters in arms. And then when they come back into society, back into the civilian world, there's no real context for that. And people start to create judgments about themselves or what they did, or society does that for us, right? As with the Vietnam era veterans. And people might experience shame or depression, or they might withdraw from society because they feel like they're damaged, like something that they did is in violation of who they were supposed to be. And so it creates what we call moral injury, which is this ongoing suffering. And I always want to point out, because I think it's really easy to start from a place of combat, because a lot of people can understand those situations. We've all seen movies and whatnot, but moral injury really can explain more than just combat. So in the military, there is a lot of sexual trauma that happens. It's an epidemic, I would say. And that can cause moral injury too, because all of us are raised to, look out for, like I said, the people to your left and right. We're taught, it's drilled into us in boot camp, basic training. Leave no soldier behind, leave no Marine behind, whatever it is, have each other's backs, look out for each other. And then when there is service member on service member assault, it leaves the person who was assaulted feeling this sense of betrayal, shame, maybe something's wrong with me because we're supposed to have these values, and if somebody did this to me, it must be because I'm not good enough, I don't belong. And it can create this ongoing pain. And post-traumatic stress disorder can explain some of it, but it doesn't explain all of it. And so we picked moral injury as kind of the foundation for this program because we feel like it encompasses more than just what PTSD can capture. And I wanted to add, too, that it doesn't always have to be in service. So we see people who have moral injury, that was born out of childhood. So we live in a world where we're taught that parents are supposed to love us unconditionally, but not all parents can do that. And so when a child suffers at the hand of the people that are supposed to love them unconditionally, they can also be left feeling like, it must be me. I'm not good enough. I'm not lovable. And that can continue on into adulthood too. And so we have service members walking around with that pain from childhood that might just be sitting there causing a lot of distress in their lives. And then if you compound some of these other experiences that happen in service, it can just kind of feel out of control.
Definitely. I appreciate that focus. And I think that a lot of times, when we go to the VA for care, it will kind of focus on PTSD and generally kind of stop there and maybe be maintained with meds and ongoing counseling, of course. I don't want to diminish that program. However, I think that leaves behind the moral injury. And I often hear veterans talking about, in the service, they could manage all of that because that was just part of their duty. And then when they come home and they're doing that transition out of the military, there's that piece that really doesn't seem accepted and help them integrate into society. So I think that's when a lot of veterans are more susceptible to needing help. Do you see that also?
Yeah, I agree. I want to first say that there are people in the VA that know about this because that's where I learned about it, right? It's just, it's like with any institution, they're so big and it kind of takes finding that person with that passion and that training, and it's hard to find the right people, which is why we want to talk about this program so people know it's the right program. But the reintegration piece we know is significantly challenging because it's the clash of those two worlds where there are, the cultural norms in civilian society, the cultural norms in military life. And when you're trying to come back into civilian life, you don't have the same support you do when you're a child, but it almost feels like you're starting over developmentally with trying to figure it all out. Where do I fit? How do these behaviors fit in with what civilians are doing? And can I even talk about these things with my civilian friends because they have these other set of norms and values that they might be using to judge my behavior. And so people they keep it to themselves, they witdraw. And it can be a really dangerous time.
Definitely. That transition period, for me, when I retired from the Marine Corps, it was a lot. I mean, just to start with, we have probably a higher standard of living, so to speak, and expectations for ourselves than most people do. And so that can contribute to the idea of not fitting in and then letting that shame creep in because of things that we were required to do on active duty.
Right.
So I'm glad that you all specialize in that and continue to work well with the VA, because I think we all have a certain passion for different parts of service, and we need each other. So I appreciate that y'all have that focus. And let's see, we also, when I was at the open house the other day, it was neat to meet some of the people that you've put together in this special team. And it was neat to meet Michael, who's really passionate about PTSD. So they don't set that aside either, that you all have people that specialize in certain things, including substance abuse and some of the other special focus. Did you want to explain a little bit more about the program that's there and the different options, part-time, full-time, online?
Absolutely. Rogers is a huge behavioral health system that has every level of care. And what that means is we have inpatient services if you're feeling like I can't keep myself safe right in this moment and I need just some time with people to help me stabilize. We have residential services where people stay maybe 30 days, maybe longer, where they live there and get treatment every day. Then we have partial hospitalization, which is 6 hours a day for 5 days a week. And then we have intensive outpatient, and I'll come back to that in a second, because we also have traditional outpatient counseling where you can come for one day a week or every other week. So back to intensive outpatient, that's the level of care that the veteran IOP sits at. It's a telehealth program because we wanted to be able to reach all Wisconsin veterans. And our foundation has committed to sending out Chromebooks and hotspots to veterans who maybe don't have access to technology. We don't want that to be a barrier. Although we do understand we can't control data and Wi-Fi everywhere, so we'll work with people. But intensive outpatient is 5 days a week for 3 hours a day. It's from 8 to 11. Now, saying that, we will be flexible within meeting state regulations. So please don't let the 5 day a week scare anybody away. If you can only go 4 days a week or only 3 days a week, still connect with us and we'll try to figure it out. By state regulations, we have to provide 3 days a week of 3 hours per day of treatment. So that'll have to be, the minimum, but we want to be flexible and meet people's needs. Within the program itself, what you'll experience is you'll come in the morning and there'll be a group check-in process to just kind of talk about what was last night like, how are my symptoms interfering with my ability to engage in life. Go into a group run by our behavior specialist, who was an Army behavior specialist for 7 years, and she will teach skills. We always want people to walk away with something they can use today, and so she'll teach some skills and tools to manage the symptoms in this moment, so you can go home tonight or that night and engage with your family or your friends. And then, as Diane was saying, our therapist, Mike, will be running a moral injury group, and it'll be acceptance and commitment therapy for moral injury. And I think that's really important because what we're seeing through using acceptance and commitment therapy is we're not going to sit here and tell you what you did was right, forget about it, it's no big deal. We're going to say, we hear you, we see you, we honor the fact that you believe that what you did was wrong, and I'm not here to convince you that maybe killing somebody isn't wrong. But what I'm here to do is tell you that you're more than that moment in time. You have so many wonderful things about you and beautiful things that you've done in your life, and let's choose to deliberately focus on what makes you good and worthy while focusing on those values that are near and dear to you. So if being a good parent is near and dear to you, how do I help you make that pain of what you did smaller so that you can turn that attention to those kids? If being a community member is important to you, how do I help you make that pain a little bit more tolerable so you can get out and volunteer and share your story? And so that's what we'll be focusing on with Mike, who is an expert in PTSD treatment. He is a licensed substance use counselor, and he is all in on acceptance and commitment therapy for moral injury. He's wonderful. He grew up on military installations. As the rest of our team is very connected to military, that was one of that was my number one criteria when hiring. So our nurse just sent her daughter to Air Force Basic. The clinical supervisor's dad was a Marine Corps veteran, and so they're all intimately connected and extremely personally passionate about making this program successful and helping veterans heal.
Very nice. You know, I like the way it was defined at the open house, where it was explained about what the ACT program is, and it kind of focuses on being able to live your life by your values and still experience the pain, but with the tools of the ACT program. So many times we might think that the program doesn't work, whatever program that is, because I still have that pain or a symptom of, and yet this is not trying to explain it away or justify it. And I think that makes it a lot easier for people to accept and work with. So I really appreciate all the work that you've done to organize the program and the caring people that are just right for this program. So before we run out of time, is there anything else that you'd like to share that we haven't covered?
Yes, I'd like to share that we have immediate openings. We have spots for 8 veterans. We would love it if you would, if you're considering, if you would take a look at our website or give our number a call. The website is rogersbh.org, and our 1-800 number is 800-767-4411. You'll be connected with a real person who will take down some information about your mental health history, and they'll get you connected with us. We hope to see you soon.
Very nice. Not just a real person, a real caring person. And I'm not sure we covered the cost of this, and I know that you covered that you're working with TRICARE East Select and TRICARE West, right? Is there anything else I need to know about insurance?
Yep.
Or?
Rogers has contracts with many of the major insurance companies, and so we take most commercial insurances. We also take Medicaid HMOs, but we're contracted with TRICARE East, like you mentioned, and Select, TRICARE East Select. It's a lot to keep track of. And TRICARE West. And then we do, if a veteran or service member has low income and they're uninsured, we have a grant process, so we can try to get people patient care grants if they don't have insurance or can't otherwise afford it. We'll work creatively to try to get anybody through the door who wants to be through the door. And I always like to say, VA, they're our partners. Only about 20-30% of people actually qualify for VA care, so we're here to kind of cover that other 70%. And partner, I talk about covering sectors of fire. So we're covering a sector of fire so that we can all come together and support the mental health needs of our veterans and military service members.
Very nice, thank you. I think you've thought of everything, you and your team, obviously. So thank you, Dr. Ho Fung, for being with us today. Again, I'm Diane Young, the host of the Warrior Wisdom and Wellness podcast, and I hope that you all take good care of yourselves and share this information with the veterans and service members that need it. Thank you. Have a great day.
Fire Watch is a new program offered exclusively for veterans. If you're a veteran or military service member, you have a unique experiences that contribute to your mental health. Designed by veterans with you in mind, Rogers Fire Watch is here to support you on your journey. No matter the length or details of your service, you have a safe space at Rogers. Getting help starts with a free confidential screening. So visit rogersbh.org or call 800-767-4411 for more information.